2, 1. All right, so we're here. It's Sunday, last day of Civil War, one of the Road to Evo events before the big one in July. We're wrapping up top 16s. They just wrapped up King of Fighters. They're getting ready to finish up Street Fighter Cross Tekken. So since all my fighting's done, I figured I would take the time to try and scope around the environment and try and get some words in with some of the more noticeable people around here. And one that really caught my eye is this guy here, Bahn. He is the director for Fight Nation. So how'd you get into fighting, man?
Basically, the way I got into fighting, I've pretty much been playing fighting games for a majority of my life. I grew up like most of us, playing, the console games and things like that. And sure enough, one day, I just happened to take an interest in Street Fighter 2. Happened to be in the local arcade. It was near me. I used to play it. I got bopped. And eventually my friends started to play it. And among them, I was pretty decent. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until time went on, I eventually, as I grew older, I started to travel. I went down to Playland, met a couple of people down there, and there was an arcade that was called Broadway Arcade. And they pretty much, they knocked me around. So that basically started me on my path to just get a little more competitive.
Yeah.
But things really started to pick up once I started actually entering tournaments. And my first major tournament was East Coast Championship 4. There I met Todd Dwyer and a couple other well-known players. Some that actually, including Robert Palm, was hosting the event. And that's basically started me on my path.
Okay. So when we were talking earlier, you said something that really stuck in my mind. One of the people that I interviewed at the River City Bowl, we were talking about the age groups of the people that you want to attract into the fighting game community, and he said somewhere along the lines of ages 14 to 32. Now, you're well above that age group. You're 37 years old, that's right?
Yes.
And you're still in the competitive bracket. So how does that make you feel, more or less, being one of the older guys playing with the kids?
Honestly, it doesn't bother me. I just finished talking with Biggie, and yeah, we're older, but it doesn't bother me. I'm a kid at heart. I'm a kid at heart. I didn't do well at this particular tournament, but I didn't come in with that mindset. I didn't come in with that goal in mind. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, these are games. If you just really want to see how well you're going to do, that's why you come out. You sit there. You take your current caliber and you just see what you're made of. It's a good way just to test the waters. So that's really why people need to come out. But for me personally, I'm not really sweating it. I think a lot of it has to deal with age, where maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'd probably be salty about it.
Yeah. But I thought it was really cool that, okay, you told me how old you were, and I was kind of taken aback to that because, I'm 28. And for months, ask anyone that's been watching the show or anything like that, I have been under this mind frame that all right, my days are numbered. If I really want to do something about this, I need to do it now because I'm running out of time. But running into someone like you really gave me that inspiration to just push even more to get to where I wanted to be because, okay, this guy's not letting age hold it back. Why should I? But let's talk about Fight Nation for a second. How did that get? How'd you get affiliated with that? How did it come about?
So the whole thing with Fight Nation, I've actually been a member of Jkun for a very long time on the board. At one point, I was a moderator, and it actually all took place around 2009. It was just shortly after Vanilla had launched. There were a couple people that had been lurking on the boards. Dayashi was just, trying to get his name known. At the time, he was busy doing big things with his YouTube page. Dayashi Thirst. So basically, I was there just doing my thing with Shine. Just trying to help out, the players there, both new and old. And he basically came along, and he was actually getting hazed. A lot of people were giving him a hard time, and basically Dayashi, much like a lot of people, they're just trying to do their thing. Yeah. So I try to do my best not to really get caught up in the whole bashing and whatnot because this wasn't me, and I hate basically following people. So it was only after talking to someone that said, no one's really taking time to get to know him.
Yeah.
And I took that as my cue to say, I want to be one that's going to do that. So we played a couple of matches online, and I actually happened to win. But I felt that he was still solid. And we eventually talked for a bit. He was like, yeah, I have some things I need to do. And it was around that time when these type of leagues that they have now, like DMG and obviously just Fight Nation, always got I said, maybe I should join one. But I felt at the time that maybe I didn't have what it takes, and maybe because I didn't know him, that I had no business joining it. But my friend, actually my current protege, FNEX Raven, had just recently came on board. So I took that as my opportunity to say, well, maybe I could join. So I reached out today, we had talked off and on. He says, yeah. It's like, you want to join? I was like, yeah, he pretty much took me in open arms. So, that really meant a lot to me. And, he's a really great person, very charismatic, very, he's humble to a point, but
aren't we all in the fighting game community?
But you know what? He's real, and there's very little of that in the community. And, he's much like myself, he's a family man. There's really very little about Dayashi that I could say, hey, someone should basically give him shit. He's just a really solid person, and he's going to be there for me, and I think that's really important. So, ever since the time he's taken me in, I've been a member of the league. This is my first big tournament to come in and officially represent Fight Nation, but it's definitely not going to be the last. But that's basically how I'll be in.
So being a part of Fight Nation, is that essentially kind of like being sponsored by, say, like people like Finger Cramp or Broken Tier or Mad Cats? Are they kind of waiving fees for you? Are you still paying your dues?
No,
stuff like that.
Unlike most of the leagues, like we'll take DMG for example. Like we're actually good friends with a lot of people on the team. It's more family oriented. Yeah. So unlike most of them where you have like this business umbrella, Fight Nation is definitely more of a family unit. We're all about hanging out together. We're all about getting each other's back. And obviously we want to come here to represent, the events, but it's more about just sticking together. We're like the band of brothers.
Okay.
So that's what we're about. And I don't think that's ever going to die. Much like with, a website that I run, we believe in keeping a certain type of identity that we don't want to lose by potential investors, if that happens on the road. So no, I don't get paid for trips. I drove down here myself, and that doesn't bother me and stuff, because my outlook on things is that if I get that, great, but if not, it's okay. It's really about just sticking together and just trying to level your game and having fun in the process.
Yeah. All right. So with you being an OG, sorry if that offends you or anything like that. That seems the most respectable thing to call you.
I wear it proudly.
Yeah, you're an OG. You were there. Super Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, all the different versions of Street Fighter up until Street Fighter 4.
Yep.
Hell, you were around with Killer Instinct. All the oversaturation of fighting games, where every company had their own fighting game. What do you think of how competitive gaming was taken then to how it's taken now?
Gaming is still very much competitive, but much like I had talked about with some of the guys that are here, is that the direction of gaming is still going to evolve. One of the things that we talked about is that the curve in which it takes to learn some of these games, a lot of people refer to them as easy, scrub friendly. It's just not the same. And a lot of people have to understand that my era is gone. It's not coming back. If we're basically going to keep this, these games in business, if they're going to continue to thrive, there had to be certain concessions to be made. So, I understand that. Initially, it bothered me, but in looking back on where things were to where they're going, obviously things have changed. As long as fighting games continue to thrive and it's what the players want, at least the players continue to come out and support them, then who am I to basically, dispute that?
Yeah. All right, so the final question I'm really going to ask you, and this is one that I tend to ask everybody that I tend to interview. Where would you like to see the fighting game community go as far as all right, there are some people that are like, okay, I want to be able to turn on ESPN and see the results at Evo. We've had, especially lately, with MLG making more of a push into the fighting games with Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur, King of Fighters, where there's been the comparison of okay, the MLG is like the professional boxing match that's going on in the stadium, while the fighting game community is the fight in the parking lot that everybody seems to be betting on. So, where would you like to see it go? Would you like to see a mesh of esports and the fighting game community happen, where they suddenly are in bed together? Where would you like to see it?
The grassroots has already basically set the bar in motion as far as getting to that next level. It's inevitable. A lot of people realize that. Whether or not people that have been around or even newcomers are happy with that, I don't want to say there's much they can do about it, but it is inevitable that we're going to see some cross pollination. As far as how long it lasts, I mean, I'm not at liberty to really comment on that right now because I haven't even gone to MLG yet. And one day I actually would hope to just so I can see what it's like to experience it. I've only seen them on streams, but that's kind of like me trying to judge Civil War right now.
Yeah.
And I've never been here. It's really not my place to make those type of assumptions yet. So I'm all for it, but the thing is that from what I've seen, MLG has to be able to just work more with these companies, work more with the community. I understand it's all about business, but there has to be like a mutual ground where everyone's going to come to understanding that, okay, you know what, this is how we're going to support you, this is how we're going to set up our things, and no one's really going to have any backlash. You know, and I see a lot of that going on because, for example, Spooky's actually out there, he's doing a stream. That's the way they do their format. MLG tends to do things a little bit more stiff, a little bit more corporate.
Yeah.
And most people don't like that. They say, well, what is all this? You know, these guys are coming up with these ties, and it's very, very sterile. It kind of takes away from the community I grew up with.
Yeah.
Where we do the pop walls, where we get hyped.
Yeah, we got a little more spit and dirt in our era.
Exactly. You know, we get our shoes dirty. And with them, they're just like, no, you know, we need to wipe our feet.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we throw down. So it really throws off a lot of people. But I want to just see the fighting game community survive. It's the reason why we ended up having the crash that we did. It's why Capcom took a moment to say, you know what, no more fighting games. Because at the time, they were only catering to the hardcore.
Yeah.
And the thing is, in order for us to survive, we can't continue to cater to just the niche market.
Yeah, we can't remain closed off anymore.
No, we have to definitely focus on mainstream, and we have to be more welcoming to players of all skill levels. I don't always agree with the fact that they have these shortcuts and gems and all that, but you know what? If it was bringing the players out, and there's ways we could just, you know, I guess make substitutions just to get around this, so the players will still want to play the game.
Yeah.
Then you know it is what it is.
All right. Well, before we wrap this up, do you have any advice for people like myself, like the up and coming fighters that are trying to make this push into the competitive realm, trying to really make a name for themselves in this community?
You know, the best thing that, you know, anyone that's looking to get into the community can do is just go to tournaments. Go to tournaments, support your local scene, create a scene if you know how to basically do that. There's games that are coming out, you know, support those games. When they have events, go out there and just be there. You know, just be there, be active. You know, we know that there's plenty of people here that only live an hour away, but they're not here. You know, that doesn't really show a solid testimony that you really want to support your scene. You know, being an online warrior is only going to get you so far. If you really want to test how far you're going to go in games, you have to be here. If you want to basically get better and meet new people, you have to be here. You can't do that online. You have to basically be here. And it doesn't necessarily mean you got to go to EVO, but you got to go to those type of events. And where you go from that point is up to you. The other thing, most important, which I of all people definitely would have to admit, is that, you know, you have to accept losing. You know, you have to accept losing and just be able to just grow with that. So that's it.
All right. So where can people check you out? Where can we check out Fight Nation before we go?
You can check me out at Bahnism, and also I'm available on Facebook at Chris Bahn.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, man. I definitely appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
All right.